Before jumping into our podcast, I'd like to introduce today's guests. Doreen Burrs, Vice President Global Sales for North America for Marriott International, and Allison Taylor, Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Distribution for American Airlines, join me on today's podcast. Welcome back, MPI community. We are so thrilled to have you join us, not only through our podcast, but also here on video. We've got two very special guests lined up today, Doreen with Marriott and Allison with American Airlines. And we're here to talk about a very important topic as our industry looks to reopen both our hotels and our skies as we're ready to get back on planes and get back to business. But before we get back to business, it's important to understand some of the procedures that have been put in place by both of these wonderful companies to ensure our safety as passengers and as customers. So Doreen, let's go ahead and start with you. Marriott recently announced the Marriott Global Cleanliness Council. Who is the council made up of, and what is their primary focus?
Great. Well, thanks, Sarah. It's great to be here, and I appreciate that question. You know, what sets us apart here is that this council actually consists of both in-house Marriott experts and outside authorities as well. So the Marriott cross-discipline global experts come from housekeeping, engineering, food safety, occupational health, and associate well-being. Our outside experts include advisory members from Ecolab, Adventist Healthcare, the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Purdue University, and the Department of Food Science at Cornell University. And that council will work to develop a new generation of global hospitality cleanliness standards, norms, and behaviors for our more than 7,500 properties around the globe. That council is chaired by Ray Bennett, who is Marriott's Chief Global Officer, Global Operations, and Ray's responsibilities and team really do span the globe. So we can truly put our weight behind the fact that this initiative will serve the needs of our guests and associates around the world, with regional and cultural nuances also a part of our plans. So through that council and the scientific advice of experts, we're taking a thoughtful approach to set an even higher bar of cleanliness and develop a new guest interaction standards. And that council is focused on more than just the disinfection across hotels. It's a holistic approach designed to take care of all guests and associates.
I love that. And thank you to Marriott for really thinking about the well-being of your customers as we do start to look to rebook our meetings and our groups within your hotel. So thank you for that. So Allison, with American Airlines, you all are also working very, very hard around the clock to ensure travel confidence, or traveler confidence, I should say, which we'll get into. So as American Airlines is doing more thorough cleanings and more often, can you tell us how you're enhancing your cleaning procedures, specifically on your use of an EPA registered disinfectant?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. And I just want to start by saying I hope everyone listening to this is their families and their immediate loved ones are safe and well. This has been such a confronting time for everyone in travel, and I know that we'll get through this together. And I do think forums like this that MPI do are really just invaluable in sharing that information. And what we've been doing at American Airlines is making sure that we are really escalated the amount of cleaning that we're doing on the aircraft, at our airports, and of course in the limited lounges that are open as well. What we've been doing is utilising an EPA-registered hospital-grade disinfectant. And now we've been using that for many years, but now, of course, we're doing more regular and more thorough cleaning, what we're calling extra deep cleaning, and that includes all areas of the aircraft, and all touch points within the aircraft, the overhead bins, everything that you touch on the plane, of course, the trays, and of course, making sure that on every turn, we are doing these thorough extra cleanings as well. Now, this EPA-registered disinfectant is also used in our fogging. We are now fogging every night, every aircraft that is in the sky. And that fogging actually is a 360-degree fogging of the EPA-registered disinfectant into every nook and cranny in the plane, including, of course, bathrooms, jump seats up, jump seats down, because cleanliness is the number one priority for the customers at the moment, besides, of course, normal safety. The only area that we're not fogging every night is the cockpit, because the instruments are too delicate as well. We have actually been fogging our planes for 3 years, and it kills germs on all areas it touches for 7 days. And like Marriott, actually, our good partners, and what Doreen mentioned, we're consulting with our own doctors who are in-house, and also some experts we have from infectious disease hospitals in Dallas and elsewhere, and they're partnering with us to guide us on our cleaning protocols on the aircraft as well. But the fogging and the deep cleaning does take place as well every day, every turn.
Wow. Yeah. And I feel like I certainly miss being on an airplane. I will say I used to be on the road, just like both of you, I'm sure, basically every week. So I miss sleeping in a hotel room, and I miss being on an airplane, and I cannot wait to get back to that lifestyle.
Oh, I'm with you, Sarah. I'm with
you. Music to our ears.
I know. We'll get there, but that's why this conversation is so important, because these are the steps that are going to ensure that the planners that are listening to this, from a business standpoint, are comfortable with sharing this information back with their groups, as we look to book more meetings, hopefully in the near future. So, Allison, I want to stick to the cleanliness. You mentioned the cleaning that's taking place, of course, in between flights, on the actual aircrafts. But how is American Airlines working to comfort business and leisure travelers with added protective equipment?
Yes, as you saw, the CDC truly believes that having a mask on truly does prevent and slow down greatly the transfer of COVID-19. So as of this Monday, we require all travellers on our flights to wear masks. Now, that's been in place now. This is the 5th day, and it's all going okay. We, of course, don't require babies and toddlers. If you're a mum, you know that a toddler would rip that off in seconds or try and eat it. So, of course, young children exempt. But we are finding that a lot of parents do have their children's masks on their children when they travel as well this week. And everyone has been really decent about it. We normally fly about 700,000 people a day. And during this time, at the moment, we're flying 70 to 80,000 people a day. But for these 5 days with the mask in place, and have had masks in place now, mandatory for our flight attendants. We've had that in place for several weeks. So we felt that it started going smoothly, and we're finding people, thank goodness, are wearing them throughout their journey, not just on the aircraft. So we do have gate announcements as well, and we also, on our displays, digital displays at gates, we ask people to put their masks on. They're not required to have them on until boarding, but we're finding pretty much most people are being decent about having it on through the entire journey as well. And we're working very closely with the FAA, TSA and government bodies to see how they can assist aviation and travel in general, put some general standards so that there's continuity at the airports, both in North America and globally for the G7, G20 countries, so that people feel more confident, not just when they board, but when they in fact get off in London. Or we just started our flights to Madrid on the weekend, if they get off in Madrid, etc. So we are working with our government affairs team on those types of standardizations as well. We just want people to feel comfortable to travel again. So we've done so many videos on this. A bit like I saw the beautiful video that Arnie Sorensen from Marriott did. We also had Doug Parker, our CEO, do many videos, myself, Hank, Robert, our president, to just keep everyone up to date on what we're doing, because every week it changes. Every week we're enhancing what we're doing.
It really is about the transparency. I do also love the video that Arnie did. I got choked up when he did toward the end there. That was, a really, really well done video.
It really was.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, Doreen, what about for Marriott? Will the hotel staff be wearing masks, or what can we expect?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yes, Our associates will not only be wearing masks, but gloves, but we're going to continue to provide friendly service, clean facilities, and there's other changes throughout the hotel too. So at guest check-in, we may reduce the number of transactions by providing digital check-in options with partitions at the front desk to provide an extra level of precaution for our guests and our associates. There'll be signage and lobbies to remind guests to maintain social distancing protocols. We'll be removing or rearranging furniture to allow for more space and or distancing. Even installing more hand sanitizers and sanitizing stations, both at the entrances of our hotels, the front desk, elevator banks, fitness centers, and meeting spaces. And even in the guest rooms, while there'll be minimal housekeeping service during stays, instead, we'll focus on an intensified housekeeping service between stays, so guests are confident that not only are their rooms clean, but that they are, when they check in after another guest, but that during their stays, guests can be confident that no one else is entering their rooms. So it's really a very comprehensive approach that goes well beyond the importance of wearing masks and gloves.
Is there going to be a specific policy for guests regarding the use of masks? I know that's been such a discussion in the news, with masks walking into stores, for example. So is there a specific policy there?
Yeah, I think it's going to really depend on the location and the local ordinances. We may ask guests to wear masks as well. We're finding guests are choosing to wear masks on their own, but the most important thing is we want guests and our associates to understand and know that our hotels are a safe environment for them to be in.
I might add to that as well, because I love Doreen's points. In regards to also our food service on flights, now what we're doing, just to reduce the toing and froing and keep a distance while on the aircraft, we have changed the way we service our guests on the flight as well. So we are limiting food and beverage options as well, always of course on request for flights that are 4.5 hours and less. And those flights that are longer, we of course still maintain service, but it's a little more limited, and it's not course by course. In business or in first class, it's just one great tray delivered to you as well, just to reduce the interaction between the flight attendants and the traveller as well. We're also, during this time, blocking 50% of our middle seats and also reducing the load factor on every flight to below 85%, and alerting customers if that flight starts getting over 70%, we send them an advice letting them, look, we just want to let you know the flight is getting fuller if you would like to move on to a flight that doesn't have as many passengers as well.
Oh, that's great. So you're giving them, that you're communicating that on the front end, right, and then it's up to the customer to make that decision. I love that. Exactly. I love that procedure. Now, what about, Allison, from the boarding process? What kind of well-being toward the customer is American Airlines practicing with that?
Right. So we are actually at the boarding area at the gates. What we're doing, of course, we provide hand sanitizing on every desk at the gate as well. In fact, all areas of the airport, including check-in, and also in the baggage areas, etc. But at the gate as well, besides what we're placing on our digital screens to make people understand what the expectation is of the travellers and ourselves while they're boarding, we have placed, of course, stanchions to keep people separate, so that if someone is queuing at the gate, perhaps to change their seat allocation or make an inquiry, that they are standing at least 6 foot away from the gate agent and from the other travellers. We have also placing marks on our boarding bridges as well. So, when you go on a bridge to get onto the aircraft, we're actually putting marks on that. So it shows a little bit like if you were doing a video and standing there and they put a cross to where you stand. Those are on the bridges too, to separate travellers as they board. We have also done numerous tests on the best way to board. For example, some of our competitors are doing reverse boarding, but when we've worked with actual engineers and psychologists and also infectious disease experts, boarding, how we're doing it currently, is still the best and quickest way, and reduces the amount of what we call sort of cross-pollination. And I think we will continue to board, therefore, front to back, not reverse boarding, but we have tried all different ways and will continue to try different ways to make sure that we reduce interaction between travellers and also team members, frankly. We just want people to feel safe and comfortable as well.
What's most impressive to me with this conversation that we're having is how quickly both companies here have had to move, and we keep hearing the word pivot in our industry and think very differently than we've ever had to think before in an effort to maintain business, but then also keep people feeling safe and confident to travel. So of course, this presents a number of challenges. So Doreen, what are the greatest challenges that you find that Marriott is facing currently in implementing your new cleanliness strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because it's a challenge that ourselves and others are up to. But when there's so much unknown and there's a lot of things changing, and or ordinances can vary in the United States from state to state in different countries, really just working to proactively stay ahead of that. Rolling out a massive change throughout over 7,000 hotels globally with varying local guidelines, nuances, and the availability of materials throughout the supply chain are all things that we're mapping out to really make sure we stay ahead of it. We're confident we can do this in a way that puts our associates and our guests' safety first, but it's the it's the coordination of that. And of course, everybody, we're being asked by a lot of our clients and our guests and our associates, for information as quickly as we can get it, and we want to deliver that in a way that is fact-based and authentic, and that we can pull it through. But so I would say that's probably the greatest challenge, and one that we're navigating with great confidence and a sense of urgency.
Yeah, and I'm sure you mentioned you're getting a lot of feedback and customers want answers quickly. So are you hearing anything specific from event planners regarding the new procedures that will be in place for meetings and events?
Yeah, so the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. In fact, a lot of clients are asking us to take a leadership role, share what we know, help them understand what we're doing so that they can share it both internally with their organizations or their corporations, as well as with their travelers and their meeting attendees. In particular, they're very eager to know more about our Global Cleanliness Council. And in fact, before we announced that, a lot of questions around who, like American Airlines and others, who we were going to work with that were experts in their field of expertise so that we could take that great knowledge and pull that through. I think the other feedback we received that was very well received is that we took the voice of the customer, the questions they were asking, understanding the concerns they had, so that we could make sure as we developed our plan, it addressed those things that would be important for them so that they would feel safe, either sending their travelers or their meeting attendees to spend time with us. So everything from what's the new norm for spacing, how do you manage the way folks get into the elevator banks? Is there a use of escalators? How do you plan for breakouts and staggering it, and all of those kinds of things? And so the best thing about our guests and our customers has been those questions have ensured that we're thinking of everything possible and how we might address that as we go into what is the new norm for our future.
You mentioned this collaborative effort, really having to unite as an industry. So, and this is a question for both of you. So from a hotel industry perspective, what has the industry done to create a unified approach to new cleanliness standards? And Allison, same thing with the airline industry. What has that unified approach looked like? So whomever can start, Doreen, if you want to take it first.
Sure. No, it's a great question. So, while each hotel company is working on their own initiatives, they're likely going to be very similar because a lot of what we're doing is based on the recommendations of the World Health Organization and the CDC. So, our responsibility is to act quickly, to set and adopt new standards as one would expect from the largest hotel company in the world. And but ultimately, we're doing this for our associates and our guests. We want to instill confidence in the industry overall. And guests and associates are only going to return if they feel safe. So we're doing things like leveraging the Event Industry Council's COVID-19 Recovery Task Force, of which we are a member, and I know MPI, Paul is a member of that as well, to help pull together all of the industry. And we're also looking for things that all of our companies and organizations can commit to that will do the important job of moving the industry forward. And so, I would also say I think associations play an important role. So when I think about our relationships with MPI and PCMA for meetings and GBTA and ACT for business travel, we're all staying close to the important voice of the industry as we set out to define really what these new standards are going to be. And together, we're all going to figure out what that new normal looks like for the hospitality industry.
And for airlines, it's very similar to what Doreen outlined. We're working with ASTA, USTOA, of course, MPI, PCMA, GBTA, etc. And then, of course, with the FAA and very closely with IATA, who we are asking to do some mandating of guidelines for airports and by country, because they are the global airline, of course, association as well, and they will be greatly be able to help us. For example, yesterday we had a call with all the prime ministers of the Caribbean in regards to how will they be requiring quarantines? Will they be requiring health checks on arrival? Will they be requiring a health passport? How many IC beds they have per island, etc., and helping different countries where we are dominant, like the Caribbean, just get through this and assist them also working with the FAA and TSA. With TSA, we are hoping that just like after 9/11, when the security protocols were increased both on aircraft and, of course, at the airport, that this time there will be additional steps in the TSA, and it could be temperature checks. If you fly into Changi now in Singapore or into Shanghai, etc., you will go through the red lasers to check your temperature, and they've been doing that for many years. So we're working with them on this style of ideas, and we actually just recently wrote a white paper for the White House in regards to how we feel they should be handling on the aviation side for North America and with their partners like G7 and G20, what they should be doing in regards to making people feel safe to get back up in the air and also stay in hotels, rent out cars, etc. And I think it's really nice to see that the industry is working together, and probably Doreen has seen this as well. It's a time when everyone's very connected and we really just have one aim and one vision. And I think that's really good to see. And while we're only seeing small green shoots of hope, we are seeing that there are bookings in 90 days and out. The sort of the end of summer period, we are starting to see some relief and also some bookings, and our network is sort of phasing up as a result as well.
To your point, so for planners watching this, how can they best communicate that traveler confidence to their attendees as they're starting to hopefully market their upcoming live event, their in-person event? And as we start to open back up for business, I mean, that traveler confidence is such an important component. And we as an industry may understand it because we communicate with one another just like this. But when it comes time to communicate that out to the masses, to my membership, to my attendees, what would be your advice to assist these planners in that communication?
I would suggest that they use all the assets that hotel companies like Marriott and American Airlines and many others are providing, and utilize those assets to actually send out to their travelers and inform their travelers. You can never drag a horse to water. What you need to do is educate and inform so that they can feel comfortable making their own decisions to travel again. We have a microsite, for example, that we place all our information on. It's very easy even to cut and paste some of it and put it on like a LinkedIn or a Facebook or a WeChat site or any social media site as well. And these assets, like the videos we've all been doing that we mentioned before, and also we've done videos on our cleanliness our distancing, etc. So I'd be using those assets. We also are doing hundreds, or probably thousands now, of video calls with our customer bases just to inform them. And we have a script for it. We have a great PowerPoint. It changes like 3 times a week. I just did one this morning for 180 customers based in Latin America. And it's also a way that they can ask Q&A. And so there's a presentation for about 30, 40 minutes. And then, most importantly, it's the Q&A so that they can raise any concerns they have, and also helps us pivot to know what to solve for as well. So they're just my suggestions at the moment.
I couldn't agree more with that. And what we've found is that even as our strategies are evolving, the more we're asked questions, the more we collect that. We participate in industry forums and our own customer advisory boards, and we share what's being asked. It allows us to continue to create assets. I think Allison's point about it changing 3 times a week, completely agree with that, because there are things that as we've gone through this that we're learning and that are new or that we can expand upon. And knowing how important, a focus we put on it, that we're updating information when it becomes available. I think even seeing our senior leaders and our CEOs involved at such a intricate level just shows how seriously we're taking it, that when we don't have an answer or an update, we're getting back to folks with that. And that gives them confidence because they know that we're hearing them, we're taking it seriously, we're going to get the information in their hands. And in our case with hotels, if there is a nuance with a hotel and the kind of meeting space they have, a city or state that they're in, customizing for that stay or for that meeting when it comes up based on those nuances too. And so communication is kind of the lifeblood of relationships and trust, and really staying ahead of that and making sure that we're getting the right information into the right hands at the right time. And one thing I want to mention that I didn't mention before is our hotels are also going to have a health expert on site, our consultant that is going to work with the property and others. So when folks want to spend time at our hotel, whether they're booking a meeting or they have their travelers approved to stay with us, that's another asset that we have that we're going to leverage that is going to help us to answer questions and again, make sure that the protocols are in place and the hotels are a safe place to meet and stay.
Yeah, gosh, so many logistics to work through. I'm soaking in all this information. I feel overwhelmed on both of your behalf. So hats off to you. Hats off to you and your colleagues for all the work that you're doing. With that, Doreen, is Marriott taking any added precautions to assess if customers are sick prior to coming onto a property? So Allison mentioned, in different checkpoints in different countries, temperature checks and that kind of thing, perhaps. So is Marriott doing something similar, or what does that look like?
Yeah, and so certainly for our associates, there will be temperatures checks taken and those kinds of things. And then of course the personal protective equipment that they'll wear. But we're revisiting our pre-stay communications. It is going to include new guest procedures and protocols, for each one of our hotels. Cancellation policies will allow guests flexibility to change their plans due to illness. And in addition, we're developing very detailed processes to follow should there be a confirmed COVID-19 guest case on property and how we'll manage that. So the main point is that the pre-communication and the dialogue that happens prior to the stay will be equally as important as to how we manage things on site. So the short answer is yes, and we're continuing to develop that, as we speak.
Yeah, that's great. And then, of course, one of the other really moving things that we've seen out of this devastating pandemic is the give back component that many companies have embarked on, including Marriott and American Airlines. So Allison, American Airlines initiatives to give back to the community, what has that looked like over the past couple of months?
Yeah, look, I've been with American Airlines now, 3.5 years, and I've got to tell you, it's in their DNA and it's in every single employer. I can't be more impressed. So We've raised over $3 million working with the American Red Cross to fight COVID-19. Also, last Friday, we announced that the Elmhurst Hospital in New York, one of the hardest hit hospitals in all of New York and the most diverse for patients and also, of course, employees at the hospital. And Elmhurst did not worry about whether or not you had health insurance or what your immigration status was. They just looked after sick people. And their story was just so amazing to us and really humbling. If you speak to Israel Rocha, the CEO of Elmhurst in Queens in New York, we decided to give back to them. And so we provided them with every single employee with a free ticket for them and their loved one when they get time to actually go on a holiday. And we did that with some partners, and it really, I think, helped both our American Airlines employees and we offered through our Advantage program for lots of our customers, and thousands have done this, that they could also donate to the New York hospitals by utilising their Advantage points to donate. So we've also, of course, like so many, and I know Marriott is very much giving back to the community as well on a day-to-day basis. We have provided pandemic kits to thousands of hospitals and medical workers, and we have a very large maintenance base in Tulsa. And we have converted part of that maintenance facility to make masks and the face masks as well for medical staff. And we make 200 face shields a day in Tulsa now. And in all our hubs, and it started in Miami, but now it's gone to every hub in American Airlines, we make the face masks as well. So we are making thousands of face masks every day because, of course, the employees at the airport aren't as busy as they normally are. And they just did that themselves. They were never instructed to do that. And also the maintenance team in Tulsa weren't instructed to, they just came up with that themselves. So I love the way it just naturally bubbles up. And we'll continue, of course, through our UNICEF. We've donated $500,000 in Latin America, where we're extremely strong with our network to fight COVID-19. And we've also worked with Gary Sinise Foundation, who looks after the military and veterans associations. And I don't know if you know, but if you're coming back from Afghanistan, you have to go into quarantine immediately for 2 weeks. And we've provided a lot of pandemic kits for those veterans returning, for the military returning. Then they have to go into 2 to 3 week demobilization. So they don't get back to their family for over a month. So we've also been working with Gary Sinise on that to make them more comfortable as well. So over to Tammy, and I certainly know from my hotel days that Marriott is just so highly regarded in this area as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think it's amazing? I mean, it truly is kind of in the blood of anyone that's in hospitality. And
yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's just, and so kudos to you. I think just great things all the way around. And, we're just glad to be a part of it and support it through whether it's our community caregiver or our rooms for responder. And frankly, the outpouring of guests who have come out and said, we're looking for ways to donate and contribute, and just to really see the humanity of how everyone has rallied around this fight against this terrible, terrible, COVID-19 has been, just really heartening.
It really is. And humanity, that has been my favorite word throughout this entire crazy process and journey that the whole globe is under. I mean, it's been really neat to see people just being good people and supporting one another and really helping one another. And I so appreciate the work that both Marriott and American Airlines are doing. Thank you, ladies, so much. I mean, this is going to be tremendously valuable information to our industry. And I would love to potentially do a part 2. As you mentioned, things are changing so rapidly that I'm sure you'll have new updates and information come next week even.
No doubt.
So yeah, I know. So it's just insane. I know by the time this comes out, I'm sure this will be old news. That's this crazy part. But I love it. I know for me, I'm certainly ready to get back on the road, but this absolutely makes me as a business traveler feel much more confident and secure in knowing that from a hotel industry perspective and also the airlines perspective, there are so many procedures in place to ensure safety and well-being. So thank you both for your time today. I so appreciate it. I know you're busy, so I don't want to take up more of your time. And keep up the good fight.
Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you very
so
much.
Great to spend time
Thanks.
with you.
You too.
Thanks.
We want to thank Marriott International and American Airlines for their support of this podcast. As always, there are even more resources available to you on MPI.org.